My ladies, my lords of the court, I address the court on issues 8 and 9, the magnitude of the matters which you've been listening to and which are set out in all our documents. And I will turn later to the prayers. This morning, in the last 3 of the submissions from my colleagues, the question of what Mr. Chebukati was doing when Article 183 began to operate, 138 began to operate once the 34As moved from the polling stations to the constituency levels to become 34B, and then from there to the National Tallying Center. And Article 138(3) is entitled, the marginal note, Procedure at Presidential Election. And sub-article 3 is, in a presidential election, paragraph C, after counting the votes in the polling stations, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission shall tally and verify the count and declare the result. 138(3)(c). And so there are 3 steps to be taken after leaving the polling stations. They shall be tallied and verified and the result declared. And the party that is tasked with the duty of doing these 3 things is, under the Constitution, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. But as you have heard, as you have read all the documents, we saw only Mr. Chebukati doing these duties and not doing these duties as part of the commission, but by himself, together with his clerks, together with his team members, to which I will come in a moment, but not in their capacity as having any decision-making powers over the steps he was taking as the person doing tallying and verifying. Why was there not the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission not taking these steps by itself or through itself? And the answer to that is given by Mr. Chebukati himself, and it is in his replying affidavit, sworn on the 26th day of August 2022. And this is what he is setting out in paragraph 108. Sorry, 103. Thank you. On page 10, members of the court, my apologies, to paragraph 37. And this is what Mr. Chebukati says, that the Commission, from Gazette Notice number 9540, number 155, dated 8th of August 2022, a day before the election, outlined the result pathway from the polling station to the national tallying as follows. And then he quotes the Gazette Notice, subtitle, "The Presidential Returning Officer," into brackets, Commission Chairman, Roman 1, receives Form 34As and 34B. Article 138 is reading that the form should be received by the IEBC. Roman 2 from the Gazette Notice, the Presidential Returning Officer, Commission Chairperson, verifies. And later on, again, he says, declares. Where does he get this authority from? Is from the Gazette Notice. And so that Gazette Notice is set out in his affidavit. And the Gazette Notice is reading on page 36. This Gazette Notice is in the X made, and it sets out the result path at the National Tallying Center, which we have seen. And so we search for the authority to move away from Article 138. How did it get from IEBC to Mr. Chebukati? In exercise of the powers confirmed by Articles 88, 44 of the Constitution, Section 4 of the IEBC Act, Sections 38, 39 of the Elections Act, and Regulations 87(1)(b) of the Elections General Regulations 2012. This shift has come through these General Regulations 2012, which were amended at a different time, and brings a different receiving party. And that receiving party is the returning officer, into brackets, Commission Chairman, and the 87 itself, the regulation, is an amendment and is referred to by Mr. Chebukati. We submit that Regulation 87 and this pathway that he has put down is a repeat of Article 138(3)(c), but with one significant alteration. Instead of the IEBC receiving the votes, instead of the IEBC verifying the votes and declaring the tally and the verification, he has put his own name, the chairman. Simple submission we have that this is subsidiary legislation. The pathway which he was relying on in the Gazette Notice is void totally. The subsidiary legislation from which the Gazette notice is derived is void, as being in total conflict with not only its principal legislation, but with the Constitution itself. This is what takes the tallying and verification process away from the IEBC and took it into what was happening from the 9th of August right up to the 15th of August. And this was breaking every single national value set out in Article 10. And because this too was a checkpoint, it is widely believed, and the chairman is the first to fan this, that there is only one key checkpoint in the process of counting, and that is 34A at the polling station, close of polling, a photograph, the Keems skit, and that's the check. We have to understand that there isn't only one check. There is a second key check. From the 34As to the 34Bs, there is generated 34C. And 34C is so key that it needs a second check. And who is there to do that checking? No longer the agents at the polling stations. In their place, the Constitution sets the IEBC, the 7 commissioners. And the 7 commissioners are checking the movement of the thousands of 34As into 292 or 290 of the 34Bs. And the people watching them are the 7 commissioners who are representing the people of Kenya, overlooking the process. And by shutting them out, as has been set out by numerous of the affidavits and the television itself, that those 6 were kept away from the process of verification, so that the participation of the people of Kenya over the process of establishing the will of the people was closed down. But there is even a more dangerous thing going on here, and it is this. By this amendment, there was a concentration of the entire process, both of the verification as well as the decision-making as a consequence of that tallying and verification, a concentration into only one individual. And it gave him the power, that Gazette notice, that subsidiary legislation, in violation of the Constitution itself, to take these decisions, and vested in him an asset, a power to find a result all by himself, with no check. And if such a person were an auctioneer, then he had got into his hands. If you want to be a successful auctioneer, you must have something to auction. And this, the supreme prize in our politics, in our national life, in our institutions, had come into the hands of one person. This is a danger so great that it has been the push from the beginning of this election campaign, before the election. Keep your eyes on 34A at the polling station. Anybody who questions anything after that is an agitator, a person who is out to commit violence, is a person seeking this and that and the other. These are all decoys, taking away the key information that one man is doing this, and this petition is the most important petition that we have. It is from this bench. There are 3 counsel here who filed and were present and argued the first presidential election petition against an incumbent 25 years ago, in 1992, now 30 years ago. And we have had to move step by step, pushing from very crude checking against very crude stuffing of ballot boxes to this day, when our ballot boxes are being stuffed with a highly sophisticated other writing form. And this is not about 2 people, it's not about 1 person, it's not about political ambition. This is what happens when this chairman is left to do what he has carefully managed to do. And it is therefore our first prayer that this court, the Supreme Court, holds and declares that the Gazette notice and the 87 subsidiary legislation of the general regulations is null and void for being contrary to its principal legislation and constitution.